Good morning. It is Wednesday. I am trying to go live here. We shall see. I'm excited. It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. It is time for our Wayne Chronicles. Everyone who's watched this show before knows this is not the show for the kids. I am just raw. I cover the topics. I say really what's on my mind. I am excited that we have switched this whole show to YouTube. My team is working very hard to expand my brand and how we do things. And so this show is only going to be on YouTube. We have a little more freedom on YouTube. Some of our people who watch aren't even on Facebook. So we are shifting this show to YouTube, and we might be shifting other shows. But if you have children, you might want to have them watch Dean Talk or listen to my podcast from the Desk of the Dean, which is a little more geared towards the whole family. But this is not the show. Today's topic, of course, is advocating for yourself is not arrogant. We're going to get into that. But first, let's discuss some of the things that have happened in this country and around the world in the last week. First, we have to wish Dr. Kimbrough, the president of Dillard, and his entire family our condolences. He lost his brother this week due to COVID. Having lost several family members, I understand the impact that has for my family. So we certainly have our prayers going out to him. And we want to wish, and I want to wish Dr. Kevin James and the entire Morris Brown College family congratulations, because they have just received candidacy with TRACS, which is a national accrediting agency. And this has been a long time in the making. He has been fighting since he took over. And that institution is now broken this 20-year situation where they did not have accreditation. So congratulations to all of them. But let's get into this Dante Wright situation. So I have found myself this week very, very challenged with this entire situation. And I do want to thank, we're doing this live now on Instagram, so we're praying this all goes well. But I have been really having a challenge this week. As a Black male, as a Black person in America, I put a post up on my Facebook that said, I was born Black, I would die Black, but I do not intend to die because I am Black. And that's pretty much where a lot of us are this week. I don't understand how you can, quote unquote, accidentally shoot someone by picking the taser over the gun. And then instead of facing consequences, you have the option of just resigning and moving on with your life. I have worked in higher ed for nearly 20 years. I cannot think of a single situation where me or any of my colleagues could shoot and kill somebody on the campus and then just decide, well, we're quitting and we're going to go home and let's look for a new job. Like, I don't understand the logic of how that is justified. I don't understand the logic how anyone could even allow that to happen. And if there are not some charges brought up, not just brought up, but executed with consequences, then we really have work to do. And people are talking about they're tired of folks protesting and all. Well, at this point in time, that is probably the safest method for people to voice their opinions. I have heard everything from people from, we're going to go get our own assault rifles and start shooting people up, burn the entire city down. We are talking about these boycotts and things. My question is, at the end of the day, when are we going to develop a plan to make some change? We have these sporadic situations. We had the Black Lives Matter movement last summer. Amazing. All over the country. They said it was the first time in the history of this country that there was a movement in every single state. And now here we are at the next summer having the same problems. When are we going to develop a plan of action that will allow some change? I mean, we can keep protesting and protesting and protesting, but at the end of the day, if we are not in these government offices, if we are not in these government positions, if we are not holding the people we put into office accountable, they can be fired, and they're fired by us not reelecting them. We have people all over the state of Georgia who are in offices and continue to be in these offices. And I just had, a conversation with one of my best friends the other day. Some of these people are only elected because people know their last name. They don't even know who the people are. Or they're reelected because they've been in positions and people are just going to let them do whatever they want to do. All that's stupid. It's stupid. If we have people that we have voted in office, I don't care if it's the president of the United States or the president of the PTA, and we know that they are not doing what they need to do to get the work done, then they need to be removed. And that has nothing to do with race. You know, I watched, and part of this show, I discussed things that happened in my life. I watched some such situations on Facebook and people's Instagrams this week, and, you know, there are just all kinds of, I call them foolish statements. One of which is, if the people would just comply, then they won't have these problems. Well, Sandra Bland complied. And where is she? The other day, the officer, the military officer, who was told to put his hands out the window and open the door and get out. Now, I don't know exactly how many hands these officers thought they had, but with 2 hands out the window, how can you open the door? Hey, Amber, yes. When are we going to develop a plan of action to allow change? I am right there with it. And then the man is sitting there explaining he has to undo his seatbelt, and the officer pepper sprays him. Now, this is a man who is in the military. This is a man who is serving our country. How do you justify this? And even with Dante Wright, a law that bans air fresheners hanging from the rearview mirror is why this boy is no longer here. Yes, it has to stop, but what are we going to do about it? You know, and I have a great colleague. She is a leading scholar in religion. Wonderful. I speak to her regularly. And she was discussing on her live at one point with me when we did an interview that part of the thing is we have a movement, even a civil rights movement. And then we as a people have not developed any kind of plan of action for what happens after the movement. So we had the civil rights movement in the 60s, and then we sat around here for 50 years, and then we had the Black Lives Matter movement. Great movement. And then now I guess we'll sit around here for another 50 years watching the same stuff happening. None of this is new. If you have done any study on our people, this same stuff happened during slavery. The same stuff happened in this country in the 40s and 50s. The same stuff happened in the 60s. None of this is new. What is new is the access we have to see it because of social media, because of people with cameras that film. That's what's changed. But this has been going on since we got off the ships when we were stolen from Africa. So what are we going to do about it? And then we elect people who look like us into these positions, and they're just as incompetent as some of the other people. But we give them this grace because, you know, they're Black. Well, that's not effective either. Most of us who have jobs have some kind of a review or assessment process that is how we keep our jobs. And if we don't do the work that we've been hired to do, then we won't have a job. And that's just how the system works. And it needs to work the same way in politics. All of these permanent appointments and things, that is ridiculous. But, you know, my views are a little different, and this is my show, and I can express my views the way I want to. But we are using the Constitution as our guiding document for this country, and whereas it might have some relevant uses, how can we use a document solely as the grounds for decision-making in this country that is almost 200 years old, in which most of the people who vote and hold positions now would not even have been eligible? And that's not just even minorities. Women wouldn't have been eligible either. And then what we do is we write a little amendment, we fix a couple of things, we keep on pressing. But if we were at a university or a college, they are required to do strategic plans, which never are more than 10 years and often are only 5. Because everyone understands that changes happen, society changes, the student population changes, credentialing changes, accreditation changes. And those documents that guide the institution need to be revamped and redone. Yet with the Constitution, it is the guiding document for this country, and it is probably, although strong in many respects, if we use it ideally, does not account for most of our population. And my last note on my special topics for today is this very stupid conversation about forcing people to wear masks, and some jobs are now trying to tell people if you don't get vaccinated, you can't come back to the office. Those things, and people saying that that's not constitutional. Blah blah blah. Well, neither are seatbelts. But we wear our seatbelts because we have to, because it's a law. So this whole thing that things are not constitutional, they can't be laws, the whole grounds for that is just ignorant. There are a lot of things that we do because it's a law. You can't vote until you're 21. Most states you can't drive until you're 16. There are laws. None of that's in the Constitution. They didn't have cars, so we can't have laws regarding registrations and tags and emissions testing because they didn't have those vehicles. So if you're going to say one thing is unconstitutional, then everything needs to be unconstitutional, because it's just a stupid premise that the things I don't like, I shouldn't have to do. But sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it's about the other people. And I was very proud of one of my mentees, of a young person in his early 20s. He said, I got vaccinated not because I wanted to. He said, I didn't want to. I got vaccinated for the rest of my family, because I have senior citizens and people in my family that if I bring something home, they might not make it. So at some point, we have to stop thinking just about ourselves and start thinking about other people. So today's topic, advocating for yourself is not arrogant. I have been mentoring a lot of leaders across the country over the last few weeks, and I'm very glad to do that work. I'm expanding my leadership training and my speaking training and those things, and I'm very excited about that. And what I've found consistent is that people are in jobs and they won't fight for themselves. That is the strangest concept to me. If you know you are being underpaid and there's an ability to pay more, or if you know that other people who are in the same level across the board as you are getting things or having access to things that you don't, or if you know you want to do advanced training and the company has access to funds to do it, why are you not fighting for yourselves? Because at the end of the day, our companies are fighting for themselves. Some very specific things. If a company, a for-profit company, has financial problems and they downsize, you will get pink slipped. They don't think about, they got 4 kids and a husband and a wife and all this stuff. They don't care. They don't care about that stuff because at the end of the day, it's about the company. In higher ed, we have furloughs. We have salary reductions, all kinds of things that the company or the institution decides is best for them. Because at the end of the day, that's who they're fighting for. So you need to be an advocate for yourself. You should not be sitting on the sidelines waiting for something to happen from someone else. And it's not just in professional setting. I tell people all the time, if you were in a religious setting and you were being bashed and abused and the things that the person is saying just do not align with your relationship with God, why are you staying there? You should be an advocate for yourself and get up and leave. You should not stay in situations that are toxic or damaging or contrary to who you are as a person. That's a serious conversation you need to have with yourself. If you're in a job and you are totally miserable and you are trying to fight, and every time you run up against people saying things like you always asking for something, you have a bad attitude, and you're approaching things correctly, perhaps it's time for you to look to go somewhere else. We are not our parents. And my mother had the exact same, worked for the exact same school system for 37 years. She does not comprehend how I've had so many jobs in various states with various organizations in various fields. But I can't, live my life for what her expectations are, her thought process, or how her generation handled things. That's not going to work. And if anybody tries to discourage you from being an advocate for yourself, then you need to rethink those situations and relationships. Even if you're in a relationship with someone, you all should be balancing each other. This concept that we are looking for somebody to complete us, to me, is completely asinine. If you are not complete and whole, how can you expect to meet somebody who's quote unquote equally yoked? You don't even know who you are. In educational settings, I always tell my students, At the end of the day, your degree completion is your responsibility. If professors are not coming to class that you're paying for, why are you allowing it? If you are asking for help and you're not getting it, why do you allow that to continue? No one else is responsible for your life but you. And with that, advocating for yourself might mean you need to get some mental health services. Let's stop shaming people for seeing therapists. Let's stop that. Advocating for yourself might mean that, you need to ask for help. We tell young people all the time, if you need help, you need to ask for it. And then as we get older, we do the reverse. We will struggle. We will, be overwhelmed, near having a breakdown, sick, ill, before we ever ask someone for help. And I'm being very transparent. I've done it too. For years, I did it. For years, I would work myself. My goal was to work harder and longer and more hours than everyone else. There were years that I never took a vacation. If the institution was on a break, I would work through the break because I thought that, meant that I was really meeting goals. I was very busy, but if I had used my time better and been an advocate for my own mental and physical health, I would not have done that. It was not conducive. It is not, I looked at someone's show the other day, like, it's not a badge of honor to say that you work more hours than everyone else. And at one point I thought about it, my president at the institution, two of the presidents, left at 5 o'clock. And then sometimes I would be there until 12. And I'm like, well, why? When I began to really think about it, I am not advocating for myself because this is unhealthy. It is not healthy to work 15 or 16 hours. And so you have to be an advocate. You have to talk to people. You have to fight for yourself. If you know that people around you are getting raises and things and you think you deserve one, you should ask. Now, let me be very clear. Sometimes it's not what you're asking for, it's how you're asking for it. And some people have very bad attitudes. No one is going to help someone who has a bad attitude. If you come in on 10 and I'm your supervisor, this is R. Wayne Woodson is your supervisor, and you come in my office on 10, I have already mentally gone to lunch. And anybody who's ever worked for me knows I have an open door policy, so anyone can come and talk to me about anything. Now, you might not get the answer you want, but anyone can come and talk to me about anything. But the reality is your approach sometimes deters people from wanting to help you, even if they might have agreed with what you were saying. And, Black people are good for it. We will shut you off or turn you off or ignore you in a heartbeat and move right on with whatever we were planning to do. And many of us learned as children when our parents were screaming and hollering and talking to us, and trying to reprimand us, looking straight at people and not even being present in the space. That is a wonderful skill. Yes, you have to have balance. And, I'll be honest, I recently, and I'm talking about in the last couple of years, realized that balance was important. And I'll give an example. My brother got married in Hawaii. Remote wedding, we all flew to Hawaii. We were there, I think, almost a week. It was great. They had activities and all. And I took off from work. We were 6 hours behind where my job was at the time. I was getting up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning so I could get on meetings or so I could answer emails and do things for work while I was in Hawaii. Now, that doesn't make any sense. It'd been one thing if I was working on my own stuff, but I was doing work for a company that I had taken a vacation from. So, that is advocating for yourself. I now, there's 1 or 2 weekends or definitely one every month, but sometimes 2 where I shut off everything. I shut my emails off. I turn my emails off on my phone, my work phone. is not linked to my cell anymore. My away message is on. It says I will not be back until Monday. And I might not do anything, or I might spend time with family or friends, or I might go to the park and sit there and look at people. But that balance is necessary. Because if not, there are a lot of health issues that will come from overworking yourself. And I tell people all the time, before you even have your funeral, your job will have somebody else doing that work. Now, they might not have replaced your position, but somebody will be doing the work. And nothing is going to collapse and fall apart if you take a couple of days off. And I know, as an entrepreneur, I know how hard that is and how mentally challenging that concept is. But the work will be there on Monday. If we have these heads of these major Fortune 500 companies that have, thousands of employees and are balancing budgets in the billions of dollars, and they can take weekends off or they can take trips, certainly the rest of us can do. And every job has vacation time. And it is discouraging to me how many people say, I've worked here for 10 years now. I've never taken any of my vacation time. We need to stop normalizing overworking ourselves. Because who are we doing that for? If you're salaried and you overwork, you don't get any more pay. We are not hourly employees, so our salary is not broken down by hour. So if your salary is $70,000 for a 37.5-hour a week work job, guess what? If you work 97 hours, you still are only going to make the same salary. So advocating for yourself also includes balance with work, with personal life. Sometimes that's balance with your family. If you have toxic family members, advocating for yourself might mean, okay, well, at this point, we're going to have to sever this relationship because this is not healthy. Advocating for yourself. And people are going to say, he has a bad attitude, or he's arrogant, or he's unapproachable, or, he thinks he's all that. At the end of the day, I had an aunt, and I really won't go into exactly what she had said, but she had the 3 F's, and 2 of them are feeding and financing. Now, you can figure out the other F on your own. But, she was like, if people are not paying your bills, or if they're not providing food on your table, why are you worried about their opinions? I didn't value that statement when I was younger. But as I've gotten older, I have really begun to appreciate that. Living for other people and other people's expectations and what other people want and other people's opinions is certainly not advocating for yourself. Because even people who care about you, who don't understand what you're doing or don't understand maybe that God gave you a vision of whatever it is, will discourage you, sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally because they don't understand. But that you can't let other people's views and opinions derail you. And I mean, there's this whole diversity and inclusion thing going on in the country now, as if diversity and inclusion should not have been considered from the foundation of this process. And we got all these new positions and everybody, we want to cancel everybody and all that. But what are we doing? What work are we doing so that we are advocating for ourselves, for our communities, for the people in our families that we love and care about, so that everybody's living a better life? And that's my point for today. Advocating for yourself should improve your quality of life. And if it's not, then you need to make some changes. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs to go quit their job, but I just talked to someone this week and I told him, I said, the best time to get a job or find a job is when you have a job. Everybody's not an entrepreneur. It is a lot more work if you're working for yourself. So this concept that everybody should be an entrepreneur is not realistic either. But that does not mean that you should not be your priority. You should not feel undervalued, underpaid, and under-inspired consistently. So if you think about anything over this next week, take some time, sit down, figure out ways that you can advocate for yourself that will improve your life. And begin to implement those processes daily. It's not going to happen overnight. It might be this week you think of one thing. You might say, I'm going to actually leave my office at lunch and take my 30 minutes or an hour and go somewhere else. It might mean that, this week you don't want to talk to people on the phone. Okay? Don't talk to people on the phone. They'll be there later. And the people who love and care about you and support you are not going to be upset in any kind of way. So think about that over this week. I'm excited about this show. I'm excited about so many things. We do want to, my team always gets on me if I don't do a couple of things. One, make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, Dr. Woodson 2020. And I have been so glad that Java 365 really funded the beginning of this year for my talk shows. Their website, getjava365.com. It is a Black-owned coffee company. If you use promo code Woodson20, you will get a discount, and they will donate to our scholarship fund at my foundation. I am excited about this week. Remember who you are, and remember to always, advocate for yourself.